Today I'm gonna teach you how I would set up my OBS if I had to start everything from scratch again. By the end of this video, we're gonna have a basic setup with a single camera system that can switch between all my cameras, a single content system that can cycle between my game, monitor, and capture card, organized scenes with folders and intentional names, and a solid foundation for both horizontal and vertical streaming. Streaming has changed a lot since I started in 2020. Today, it's normal to stream on multiple platforms, build for both horizontal and vertical formats, and use more tools than just your facecam and your gameplay. Because streaming has evolved, I wanted to make an updated guide that reflects a more modern streaming setup. So this is the entry point video for a series about building a modern streaming setup. We'll eventually get into the advanced stuff later, but first, we need a solid OBS foundation. So just a quick demo of what you're gonna have by the end of this video. You're gonna have two main scenes. You're just chatting for when you're talking to your viewers, and also your gameplay scene for when you're playing games or displaying any sort of content. And as you can see here, both just chatting and gameplay scene only have three sources: the camera, content, and the audio. So nothing fancy, but here's the cool part. You also have this very nice scene organizer where you can put your scenes into folders for organizing. And the reason for having more than one folder here, as you can see, is because I actually have a lot more scenes than just my just chatting and gameplay scenes. And the reason for having these scenes is, look, I'm on my just chatting scene right now, and if I'm talking to my viewers and I want to switch from my main camera to my secondary camera, I can easily switch while having only one source in my just chatting scene for my camera, as you can see here. Only one source for a camera. But I can switch from my main camera to my secondary camera. And also, if I go to my gameplay scene, let's say I'm done playing the game that I'm playing on my PC and I want to switch to my PS5, and I can also do that easily in just one source. As you can see here, just one content source, and I can switch from my capture card to whatever my monitor is displaying right now. Also, even though we're not going to focus on this that much in this video yet, we're going to build our vertical scenes for our just chatting and gameplay scenes. This is for when you want to stream to TikTok, YouTube vertical, or Twitch vertical. And as you can see here, the horizontal and vertical scenes are synced. So if I switch my horizontal scene, it'll also switch the vertical scene. To start off, of course, we need to download OBS first. Now, most people get the OBS installer from OBS main website, but in this video, I actually recommend getting OBS from Stream Suite by Atom. I'm gonna put the link in the description down below. And the reason why I recommend installing Stream Suite is because it has all the plugins, or most of the plugins that I use in my setup built into it. If we would install OBS from the main OBS website, we still need to manually install all those plugins, which I think is a hassle for you. So it's easier if you download OBS from here. So just click download Stream Suite for free. Once you have the Atom Stream Suite installer downloaded, just run it and install it just like any other applications. Press next. And here, I strongly recommend having this checkbox ticked. It doesn't let me because I already have this in my setup, but in your case, you probably don't. So make sure that this option, which says featured OBS plugins, is checked. And it's up to you whether you want to install Atom Stream Suite's theme. If you just want to use the OBS vanilla theme, you don't need to check this, but I'm gonna have it checked in my setup because I like it. So once I'm ready, I'm gonna hit next. And this warning just exists because, like I said, those OBS plugins are already in my setup, but in your case, it'll probably just run as usual. Next up, we need to download OBS plugin. We mainly need this for the scene organizer that I showed you earlier, but it's got other features that you're probably gonna love once you explore it. But for now, let's download it. The download link will give you a zip file which you could just open and extract. And from here, just run the installer. And it's just like any other application installer, just press next. This time, I'm gonna point it where my OBS was installed. And this is where my new OBS was installed. So I'll just press next. And just keep pressing next and then click install. The last thing that I recommend downloading is the OBS source toggler Lua script. This is mainly for switching the camera and content sources that I was demonstrating earlier. And from here, just click download. Technically, you can store this file wherever on your PC, but I recommend downloading it into a specific folder. So just go to the folder where your OBS was installed and go to Data, OBS Plugins, Frontend Tools, Scripts, and save it here. So this is what to expect when you first launched OBS with Stream Suite and StreamUp installed. Now, I'm gonna ignore this one yet, but this is one cool thing about StreamUp. It reminds you whenever a plugin has an update and you could just download it from there. But I'm gonna ignore it from now. And this is what we're gonna focus on instead. So from here, the options that we're gonna keep on are, I'm gonna turn this off because I don't need that. I don't also need the multi-dock system, but I'll keep that on. We need scene organizer for sure. StreamUp dock, I don't care. I'll turn it off. So yeah, then save and continue. And from here, we're gonna go to the build tab. And this is gonna be our main workspace whenever we're building something for our stream. And from here, we're gonna go to docs. And we're gonna uncheck scenes. And we're gonna use the StreamUp scene organizer instead. Okay, and we're gonna drag it where the scene doc was. Now this will contain the scene organizer folder that I showed you earlier. Okay, before I forget everything, let's go to settings first. And this is the only settings that we're gonna change in this video. We're gonna go to video. And we'll change the base canvas resolution to 1440p. And the reason for that is my monitor's resolution is 1440p. Pick whichever resolution your monitor has. It doesn't have to be 1440p. It can be 1080 or 4K. Just make sure that your canvas resolution matches your monitor's native resolution. Okay. And for the output resolution, we're just gonna choose 1920 by 1080p because that's pretty much the standard resolution for most streaming platforms. And we're gonna change the FPS value to 60 because this is mainly gonna be used for gaming streams. Now, before we create our first ever scene, let's agree on a naming system first. If it's a scene, we'll make it all caps. If it's a source or a filter, we'll use title case. Actually, there are two subtypes of scenes that I want to introduce in this tutorial: production scene and component scene. Production scenes are the organized layouts that are presented to the viewers. And there are the component scenes. Those are the scenes that are reusable building blocks that are added inside other scenes. This will make sense later once we start building them. Now let's start creating some scenes. But before that, let's create the folders that they're gonna go into. So the first folder that I'm gonna create is a folder for production scenes. And the last folder that I'm gonna create is the audio component. So the first official scene that we're gonna create is the camera picker. So what I'm gonna do is I'll just rename this one and call it camera picker. And I'm gonna drag that inside the camera component because this is gonna be a camera component scene. The camera picker scene will contain all the camera sources that we're gonna add in this setup. So I'm gonna add a video capture device and I'm gonna name it main camera. And like we agreed on, we're gonna use title case for sources. I like being straightforward in giving names to my sources because some tools or plugins allow for type to search when you're looking for a source. If I add something like prefixes to my source names, then it'll give me more things to type before I find the source that I'm looking for. So I like being intentional and straightforward in giving names. If it's my main camera, I name it main camera. If it's a secondary camera, I name it secondary camera. Give it a good name of what it represents. So for my main camera, I'm gonna add my Elgato face cam. And I'm gonna put it in the center of the canvas. I can do it by pressing Ctrl D. I'm not gonna resize this to fit in the canvas because my camera is a 1080p source, and by doing so, I'm losing some quality. So I'll just keep it 1080p and keep it in the center. Okay, I just added a secondary camera in the background, which is the side camera that I have here. So the problem here is because the secondary camera is on top of the main camera, you cannot see the main camera. Okay. So I have to turn this off to be able to switch to my main camera. And if I want to see the secondary camera, I just have to turn this on and then hide this one. But there's an easier way to do that, and that's the reason why we installed the Source Toggler plugin. So we're gonna go to Tools and Scripts, and here we're gonna add the Source Toggler Lua that we saved earlier. So here in the Source Toggler Lua, we're gonna click this plus button and we're gonna add the camera pickers scene. Hit OK and then close. What it does is it only allows for one source within the scene to be visible. For example, I'm gonna hide main camera, and once I click main camera again, it'll automatically turn off the secondary camera. So if I press secondary camera, it'll automatically turn off the main camera. So even though you have multiple sources within the scene, it'll only allow for one scene to be active. So you can have multiple cameras inside this camera picker scene component. The next scene that we're going to create is another component scene, which is the content picker, which is the same idea as the camera picker, but it's for our content. Okay, we're gonna take this inside the content component folder. Okay, inside content picker, we're gonna add a display capture. I'd like to keep that name, hit OK, and I'll choose my main monitor. So here you go. I'm gonna keep the resolution that way because this is perfect. This is a 2560 by 1440 source inside 1440p canvas, so that's perfect. And the next one is I'm gonna add a game capture source. I'd like to keep that name too. And for this one, I'm gonna keep this setting so it'll capture any full screen application that you have opened. So I'm gonna press OK. And the last source that I'm gonna add is another video capture device, and this is for my capture card. For my capture card, I'm gonna select my Elgato HD60X. That's my capture card right there. And I'm gonna give it a custom resolution of 2560 by 1440, and there you go. So same as the camera picker, I'm gonna add content picker inside the Source Toggler script. So I'm gonna press OK, hit close. So see, once I start hiding and then showing one of these sources, it'll only activate that one and deactivate all the others. See, pretty cool, right? Now my game capture is blank because I don't have any game open right now, but if I open a game, this game capture will capture that game. Now it's time to create our first official production scene. So I'm gonna create a new scene here, and I'm gonna call it Just Chatting. And this is gonna be for our Just Chatting scene, obviously. Press OK, and I'm gonna drag it into the production scenes folder because this is gonna be a production scene, and we're gonna go there. And now I'd like to add my camera and content component scene here. So here in the sources, I'm gonna create a new source or add a new source, and instead of adding another video capture device, we're gonna add a scene instead and choose our camera picker scene. What I just did is called scene nesting. It is when you add a scene within a scene, and there's a lot of reasons to do that, and I'm gonna give you a good example. In my just chatting scene, I want my camera to be full screen, and I can try that by right-clicking the camera picker scene, go to transform, and then choose fit to screen or simply Control F. If I do that, nothing happens. And that's because my camera scene is already on full screen, but there's just some blank spaces on the sides. And the blank spaces, which I'll just call the black bars, are there because, as you remember, if we go back to our camera picker scene and choose one of our camera sources, we have a 1080p source inside the 1440p canvas. And we didn't want to stretch the 1080p source because we'll lose some quality. To remove those black bars, we're going to create a new scene. This is going to be a component scene, which I'll call camera. And I'll put it inside the camera component, and inside camera I'm gonna add the camera picker. Then I'm gonna right click camera here and go to filters. So to remove those black bars, we need to add the crop filter. So I'm gonna press this plus button and then find crop or pad, and I'll just name it crop because that's what I'm gonna use it for. To know the values that we need to add to these fields, we need to go back to our camera picker scene and click one of our camera sources. And as you can see here, OBS tells us how many pixels we need to crop. So on the left, we need to crop 320 pixels. Top is 180, right is 320, and then 180 for the bottom. And then if we close that and go back to our camera, I know it looks weird, but when we go to our just chatting and then replace this scene with the camera scene that we just created, you can see that there's no black bars anymore. And if I press Control F, it's full screen now. Technically, we're still losing some quality here because we stretched the 1080p camera to a 1440p canvas, but I could live with that because we're only stretching our camera to full screen in our just chatting scene. Now I'm gonna do the same scene nesting for our content component, but we're not gonna add any crop filter because our content picker doesn't need that. But we might need it in the future for when we add some filters to our content component in the future. So I'm gonna create another scene and I'll call it content, and then put it inside the content component, and then go there and add content picker there. Then I'll go back to my just chatting scene, and the same as camera, I'm gonna add another scene source here, and instead of choosing content picker, I'm gonna choose the front facing content scene, and I'm gonna make it smaller and place it in the bottom right, kind of like a picture-in-picture kind of thing. I think I like that. Now I'm ready to create my gameplay scene, so I'm gonna create a new scene again and call it gameplay, put it inside the production scenes folder, click that, and for this one I want the content component to be full screen. So I'm gonna add a scene source and I'll add content, keep it full screen, and I'm also gonna add our camera component. So I'm gonna add a scene source again and pick camera. For this one I want a smaller camera. Before resizing our cameras, I want to emphasize again, did you notice that when I added the camera scene to our gameplay scene, it was added as a 1080p source, not a stretched 1440p source, and at the same time, the black bars aren't there. So like I said, no losing of any quality. If I had stretched the cameras in the camera picker level and then add the camera picker to our production scenes, what's gonna happen is we're always gonna give a stretched camera to our production scenes, which is Not ideal. Even if you resize it to a smaller scene or source, it's still a loose quality because you did the stretching in the camera picker level, whereas what we did is we only stretched it in our just chatting scene, but in gameplay scene it's not stretched at all. So that's the advantage of scene nesting. So let me just switch to my main camera before I resize the camera in the gameplay scene. Okay, so I want a smaller camera here. I want it narrower. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna crop these extra parts where I'm not there. So this time, instead of adding a crop filter to the camera scene, I'm just gonna do the alt cropping method. So I'm gonna hold alt and then drag this in. Like that. I'm happy with that. And I'm gonna make it smaller. And I'm gonna put it right here. And I'm gonna right click that and then center vertically. So by doing the alt cropping method, we're only doing the crop inside that particular scene. So if we go back to our just chatting scene, as you can see, our camera is not cropped here, but it is in the gameplay scene. So it's only happening in the scene where you did the alt cropping. Okay, now that we're done creating all the production scenes that we want to have for this video, we're ready to add audio to our stream. So what most creators do is go to settings and then audio, and then they add their speaker in the desktop audio field here, and then add their mic here. Now this is okay, but this is not my preferred method of adding audio to our stream. By doing this, you're adding audio in a global level. And that means these two audio sources that we added are applied across the whole OBS system. And that is not ideal because in the future, you might have more scenes. And in some of those scenes, you might want an audio, let's say for example, your music to be quieter in one scene but louder in the other. Now, we're not talking about advanced audio routing system yet. As you can see, we only have two basic audio sources. My speaker, which is everything that I hear from my speakers. No separations of audio yet, because in the future, we can separate our music, our gameplay audio, and our browser audio, but we're not going to talk about that yet. But we are preparing for that advanced system now. So we're going to do a per scene audio system because that's the ideal system. So I'm going to go back to the audio settings again and then disable these two. And instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new scene and I'll call it audio. And then in this audio scene, I'm going to add my microphone and my desktop audio. So for the microphone, I'm going to add an audio input capture source, and then I'll name this microphone. And I'll choose my microphone and then add another source. And this time I'll add an audio output capture source and I'll call this one desktop audio. For this one, I'll choose my speaker. And then I'm gonna put the audio scene in the audio component folder because that's an audio component. Next, I'm gonna add that audio scene that we just created in our just chatting and gameplay scenes. So I'm gonna add a scene and then I'll choose audio, and then I'll just copy this and then paste it to gameplay scene. Now, pay attention. When we're in our just chatting and gameplay scenes, you can see that there are two audio sources in our audio mixer. And if we go to our component scenes, those two sources are gone. And that's because we're doing a per scene audio system. We don't care if our viewers don't hear us whenever we go to these scenes because we're never going to touch these scenes when we're actually streaming because these are just component scenes. We only care about our production scenes because those are the scenes that our viewers will see. Now, the last thing that I want to cover in this video is adding vertical scenes. We're not going to do an in-depth discussion about this yet because this is going to be another topic for another video, but I just want to create basic vertical scenes for just chatting and gameplay scenes. So we'll find the vertical canvas in the right side of our OBS build tab. And from here, I'm going to rename this pre-made scene into just chatting. And because this is a vertical scene, I'll add the prefix here. This is the only time that I use prefix, and I just use a simple prefix such as just V and then space. And then I'll add another scene and then I'll call it V gameplay. And in our vertical just chatting, we'll just add our camera source here. We won't care about the placement because we don't really care right now. We'll discuss this in depth in another video, but yeah, put it like that and then go to gameplay scene and then add our camera scene. Then we'll add our content scene. Very basic. As you notice here, if I go to my horizontal canvas, if I switch to my gameplay to just chatting scene, the vertical canvas doesn't do anything. Now I want it so when I switch from gameplay to just chatting and then vice versa, I want vertical canvas to switch as well. So we can do that by linking our vertical gameplay scene by right clicking and then go to link scenes and then check gameplay. And then if we right click our vertical just chatting and then go to link scenes and then check just chatting. Now what's gonna happen is if I go to my just chatting, if I go from my just chatting in the horizontal canvas and then go to my gameplay scene, the vertical canvas will switch as well. And for our final touch, we're gonna add a smooth animation whenever we switch scenes. And to do that, we're gonna go to our scene transitions and click the plus button and click move. And for the settings, we'll just change zoom to 100 here for the appearing items, and then position set to none, and then transition fade. We're gonna do the same thing for the disappearing items. Set this to none and then transition to fade. Then we just need to set the duration from 300 to 500 ms and then do the same thing for the vertical canvas. And now when you switch scenes, look at this smooth animation. Yeah. Pretty cool, right? Now you have this simple OBS setup with two scenes but with advanced content and camera system where you could just switch cameras right off the bat and then switch your content. Pretty cool, right? If you found this video helpful, I hope you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Like I said, this is just the entry point video of a series that I'm making that will help you become advanced streamers. We just had to learn the basic OBS foundations first before we dig deep into the more complicated parts. Also, if you want to be a part of my community, go join my Discord. I'm going to leave the link in the description down below. I also stream to Twitch, Tik, YouTube, and TikTok. So if you want to follow me, go ahead and do that. Links will also be in the description. Also, I have a Patreon where I post some of my creations. If you're interested in any of that, I'll also leave the link in the description down below. But thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you again. Bye.